Welcome back, class. Mr. Long here once again with a video lecture. Now moving on to document B. So what I need everyone to do, please, is somewhere at the very top of document B, I need you to please write down political motive, just like I did, and go ahead and highlight it. And then underneath political motive, just like I did, and I keep on saying this phrase over and over again, but please write down more land equals more power and then circle it or highlight it, whatever you want to do to make sure it just kind of stands out. So there's actually two excerpts or two parts to document B. The first part is from a British or English intellectual author by the last name of Ruskin. And then the second excerpt is from a German writer by the last name of Fabry. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about both of these excerpts and then discuss it. And then from there, you guys are going to go ahead and take care of the bottom portion of document B. So with that being said, definitely circle the name John Ruskin and then highlight the year 1870. From there, I need you guys to take a look at the note. Go ahead, highlight his name. Then I want you to also highlight English intellectual author. And then from there, let's move on to the first paragraph, which is from, once again, John Ruskin. So I'm going to go ahead and read it, obviously tell you what to highlight, and then talk about the annotations that are in the margins. It says, "Will the youth of England make your country again a royal throne of kings, for all the world a source of light, a center of peace? This is what England must either do or perish. She must found colonies as fast and as far as she is able, formed of her most energetic and worthiest men, seizing every piece of fruitful waste ground she can set her foot on, and there teaching these her colonists that their first aim is to be to advance the power of England by land and by sea." Okay, so the first annotation is at the very top. We're going to focus on the youths of England. So draw a little arrow out to the left like I did. And I really want you to focus on just that phrase, the youths of England. So obviously it has to do with the younger generation of people living in Great Britain. It's almost like they are putting everything on the shoulders of the young. It adds a lot of pressure, but it's going to be their responsibility to make Great Britain great again, I guess we can say, just like it was in the past. Not like it's not great at this time, but once again, more land equals more power. And that is the ultimate goal when we're talking about the political motive, is to get as much land as you possibly can. So once again, they are going to depend on the younger people to keep Great Britain strong and to maintain that strength, because Great Britain is one of the superpower countries in not only Europe, but the world. They're one of the most strong or the most powerful countries in the world. Okay, so our next annotation is where it says England must either do or perish. So draw a little arrow up to the right, just like I did. And then I want you to write for the annotation, England must colonize or they will die. So when I say they will die or perish, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to die. It's a literal sense where they're going to become weaker. They're going to fall behind the pack of the rest of the European countries or the world countries that are competing for land during this time period. So the only way for Great Britain to remain at the top of the list, ahead of the pack, the strongest country in the world, is for Great Britain to go out and colonize and take over as much land as they possibly can, which is going to take us to the annotation underneath. Not only are they going to colonize and they're going to take over as much land as they possibly can, but they are going to teach all the people that they conquer the culture of Great Britain, the culture of the English, and they are going to influence these people quite a bit. So not only are they going to take over their land, but they're also going to influence them in every sort of way when it comes to culture. Once again, The very last line says, advance the power of England by land and by sea. Once again, the more land a country has, the more power that they have. But a side note, we should know this, and I think I mentioned this in class before, Great Britain has the strongest navy in the world, and they want to maintain that power of having the strongest navy in the world. So that's why they mention by sea. Okay, so make sure that you guys have the highlights, the correct annotations. If you need to go back at any point, please rewind and replay. Now moving on to the second part of document B. And the source of the second part of document B is from Frederick Fabry, which is a German author. And this short excerpt is taken from a book that he wrote titled, Does Germany Need Colonies?, in which he wrote in 1879. So go ahead and circle his name like I did, highlight the year, 1879, and then a few highlights in the note at the very top. Highlight father of the German colonial movement, which means, in other words, that he was like the main person saying that Germany needs to go out and colonize and take as much land as they possibly can, just like the British. So he is the person that is saying the Germans need to go out and colonize. Also highlight, please, impressed by the colonial achievements, also highlight, of the English, and wanted Germany to do something of the same. So really, Fabry is going to mention the British almost like he idolizes or he looks up to the British and what the British are doing. And he wants the country of Germany to also follow in the footsteps of Great Britain because they are doing great things. So we're going to go ahead and read this paragraph and then, of course, highlight, and we will annotate and then discuss in further detail. But should not the German nation, who is fundamentally so very capable, so seaworthy, so industrial and commercially minded, successfully pave the way for this new course? Okay, so this first line, Fabry mentions how Germany is very capable of doing everything that Great Britain is doing. They are industrialized just like Great Britain. They are seaworthy, which means they have a strong navy just like Great Britain. And they are capable of being successful in colonizing other countries just like Great Britain. Moving on with the reading. It would be wise if we Germans would learn about colonial skills from our Anglo-Saxon, which are the British, cousins, and would begin in a friendly competition to strive after them. Okay, so once again, and this is the annotation to the right, a friendly competition. And remember, that's what imperialism is, especially when we're talking about the political motive. It turns into a big competition between these European nations. And the ultimate goal of a competition always is to win. And the only way to win this competition is to go out and get as much land as you possibly can. Moving on with the reading. When the German Reich centuries ago was at the peak of the states in Europe, it was the number one trade and sea power. So Fabry just mentioned that at one point in history, years before, Germany was one of the most powerful countries in the world, especially when it came to the sea power, the Navy. Okay. Should the new German Reich, and when I mention Reich, Reich means the German Empire, wish to prove and maintain its newly won position of power for a long time, it will have to take up the same culture, mission, and delay no longer to acknowledge its colonial task anew. So in other words, and this is the annotation to the left, in order for Germany to be great once again, like it was years before, it has to go out and it has to colonize and it has to take more land. Because once again, the key phrase, more land equals more power. That is going to go ahead and conclude the video lecture for document B. Please make sure you have the correct highlights and the correct annotations.